the right to freedom of speech, the right to freedom to protest is granted under the Constitution, which is currently being smothered by the government, and we have all seen it over a week, what is going on in Delhi. Are we to assume after 64 years of independence that the British were just in keeping Gandhiji in jail because he too was protesting against the Raj and in a non-violent manner? And in fact, he was fasting too. In the words of Dr. Kiran Bedi, immediately after the arrest of Mr. Anna Hazare, these were the actions of the days of emergency. Without the emergency in the country. Two of the most eloquent Indian cabinet ministers and eminent senior legal counsels were busy explaining in the parliament as to how the Delhi police was responsible for these preventive detentions and what is the meaning of preventive detention under section 144 of the CRPC, subread with section such and such and such and such and so forth. Democracy seems to be at its lowest ebb. In the words of Sir Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister on the eve of Indian independence, and I quote, "Power will go to the hands of rascals, rogues and freebooters. All Indian leaders will be of low caliber and men of straw," unquote. Well, why not all may be of that same cadre, but most of them are. Do you agree with the common man on the streets, since some of the biggest rogues and corrupt people of the nation are encompassed together in the parliament to save their own skin? The government is taking such ridiculous and draconian measures against democracy, and as yet, we are known to be the largest democracy in the world.
What I love about moderators is they deliver longer speeches than the person they're asking questions. The good thing is that in Gujarat, the moderator's role hasn't changed from Delhi. My very dear friend Shekhar Gupta, who edits the Indian Express, I always tremble when he's the moderator because I know he won't get a word edgeways. It's almost like being on Barkha's show. Let me answer your rather essayish kind of question in various parts. Part 1. Anna Hazare is not the messiah that he's made out to be. He is as much a creation of the media as everyone else is when protests are held. I disagree completely when you say democracy is at its lowest ebb, because if we weren't a democracy, Anna Hazare would have remained as they are. Anna Hazare wouldn't have protested if we weren't a democracy. I think Indians by nature are more harsh on themselves than they need to be. We're actually a bunch of cynics. We always see the dark lining on every silver cloud. And that to my mind is worrying. Let me explain to you the various contexts you used. The analogy with Mahatma Gandhi is completely erroneous. And that is the result of an illiterate media and an even more illiterate middle class which occupies drawing room conversation with limited intelligence or knowledge of history. Gandhi always said that the means are as important as the end. A.B. Gandhi never fought against the Raj. This is again a misnomer because people haven't actually studied history or studied Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi always stood for a cause. When he went on a hunger strike after the Chauri Chara incident, who was he protesting against? When he was in Noakhali, when the riots broke out, who was he protesting against? He wasn't protesting against the Raj. He was actually protesting against his own people, against the people who had indulged in rampant burning of an establishment. He was protesting against people who were indulging in communalism. So there, primarily, your thesis or the thesis of, eminent media personality saying, oh, this is the second Gandhi, is erroneous. I mean, it could be the second Gandhi if Indira Gandhi in that context is the first. But I'm sure even that is not plausible because of gender issues. So let's get to your third assessment of the situation. I don't think we have bad people or only bad people in government. I haven't often agreed with what Narendra Modi did post-Godhra. I've known him now since 1999. Whenever I'm in Gujarat, I spend a lot of time. I know you have a question related to that later on. But I can tell you that on the development plan, what he's done, very few people can achieve. And that's important. But again, the so-called Delhi secular media will only bash him with one proof. Oh, but what about Godra? What about Godra? We forget that the very Sonia Gandhi that the secular media venerates, her husband's prime ministership saw the death of 3,480 Sikhs. Now that wasn't genocide, but when 670 people die here, of which 30% are Hindus, you call it genocide. So the point I'm trying to make, Mr. Rungta, is that it's not apples for apples. We have a very weak sense of history in this country. We have a weaker sense of contextualizing against facts. So, jo chal gaya, so chal gaya. That doesn't work. Because history must be anchored in reality, and reality comprises facts. It doesn't comprise myths. What is this whole protest about? I think what Anna Hazare has done is he's outlined a cause which is called corruption. But I can take a bet that if people actually were honest, and you went to the Ram Leela ground, and you went to the India gates of the world, in the Azad Maidans, in the Freedom Parks, and asked people, have you ever paid a bribe? The answer would be, I have. But then they would justify it by saying, but that's why I want to change the system. Again, it is contrary to the functioning of Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi always believed that values were non-negotiable. The whole value system was non-compromising. So if you've already done an act, then you must have the sagacity to also look at another perspective. Let's come to the General of Parliament. And I want to ask an honest question here. I asked it of two reasonably unintelligent people. One is Manish Tiwari of the Congress, and the other was Ravi Shankar Prasad of the BJP. Both absolute dolts. I don't know why they're spokesmen of their respective parties. They're absolute idiots. I would request the media to use dolts and not idiots. I don't want a dharna outside my house. But actually they're so busy hearing the MPs, my turn will come much later. The reality is that how many of you, or how many of us, how many people in this audience, hand on your heart, have read the Jan Lokpal Bill or the Lokpal Bill? One person. 3. I'm saying 20. That's not even 2% of this audience. Extrapolate it and you see what happens. Again, this is typical of India. We are oceanic in our disposition. We are wave people. You know, when the wave is there, come on, let's all go. You know, there's an old saying I have. If you're down and out, every guy, even the last guy leaving the room will give you a slap and leave. That's not the way it should be. You must encourage healthy debate. Aruna Roy's point of view is as important as Anna Hazare's. Aruna Roy may have one follower, and Anna Hazare may have a lakh. I even wonder whether there is political support behind the scenes for Anna Hazare. And I'm not worried if there is. But the point is that people in democracy must be allowed for dissentive views. The essence of democracy, and whether you look at history, whether you look at contemporary history, whether you look at thinkers talking about democracy, the essence of democracy is allowing for dissent. Political dissent, thought dissent, active dissent. So you can't have a situation where you say, look, this is the way and no other. So where are we today? Willy-nilly, and I've told people like Bhatman or Norbert Rajdeep, I said, y'all are hurtling the country towards a lynch mob mentality. And this is not the end of it. You will inspire people to do the wrong things, not the right. Because you will have people now going on fasts. You will have people carrying people's homes. You will have people getting into anarchic situations. And you will have lumpen elements taking over a political process. My firm belief, and I've said it on television, I've got slammed for it on social media, but I don't care. I've maintained from day one, mine was the first article in Hindustan Times on March the 9th, slamming Anna Hazare, saying we cannot have the politics of ransom replace the politics of parliament. Parliament supremacy is undoubted. Now you might say we've got a bunch of rogues, but you're the ones who are electing them. I mean, we, the people, are electing the people who are sitting in Parliament. And if you don't like them, change them. Finally, the Chief Election Commissioner is a chap called S.Y. Qureshi. Qureshi and I have often worked together, and we're now working on a policy for which, trust me, neither of us will ever go on a fast. I love my food and drink too much. We are actually proposing what to my mind is going to be a fundamental driver of change. A bill which forces elections